Hey guys, welcome back to another League of Legends video. Today we're getting a little bit creative and funky. I've created 7 made up items that I think could realistically sort of see a place in League of Legends, but if they were put into the game would absolutely break it. So we're going to have some fun in today's videos. Let me know what you think about the items, whether you think you'd like to see them in League or you just think they'd be absolutely ridiculous and you hope they never get put into the game. Just drop your thoughts in the comments. And just as a footnote before we get cracking, guys, this video is about like the concepts, unique concepts of these items, so most of them won't have any stats attached to them. I don't want to get into the whole discussion about like game balance and that kind of thing. Just imagine that all the effects and concepts you're going to see in this video are attached to some kind of item, and it doesn't matter what that item is. Without any further ado, the first item for this video, Elixir of Angels. Essentially, this is like a guardian angel, but in an elixir form. You know that the elixirs that you buy for 500 gold? Things that you only really buy when you're fully built and it's like 50 minutes into the game, you don't have any other inventory space, you got too much gold, more money than sense. Normally those things will give you a bit of AD or some AP or some health. So how about instead of stats, we get some utility on these elixirs? The dream late game utility of all things. Of course, the Guardian Angel. To be honest, this first item, this one is just, this is bonkers. Like, the reason this wouldn't get put into the game is because everyone would be buying this. Without a doubt, this would essentially break League of Legends. The late game, as you know, it would most likely cease to exist, and there'd probably be some kind of cheesy strategy involving this for the mid and even early game. Admittedly, this one is a little bit far-fetched, so I do think there's a little something in this that maybe you could tweak and stick into the game. But let's just leave it at that and we'll move on to the next item. For this one, I've named it Arcane Betrayer. Ooh, very spoopy. The way this item works essentially is just like the Edge of Night that exists in game right now, that spell shield item, except instead of spell shielding, it spell reflects. Of course, because of the nature of this item, reflecting something is way better than just blocking it completely, so the window of activation will be much slimmer. But either way, I think this would be really cool. Can you imagine having like a Varus ult flying at you, or like a Veigar ulti flying at you, or like an Ashe arrow or something, like having it hit you and just completely straight back in the caster's face? I think this would be really cool, and it completely game changing as well, depending on what it was that you actually spell reflected. To be honest, I don't think the way that League of Legends works with all the spaghetti code, they probably couldn't even physically make an item like this. Not much else to really say about it, though. It is what it is. I personally, I would love to see this one. I think it would be really fun. So we'll move on from the spell reflector and on something a little bit different. This is one for the junglers. I've called this one the Duelist Rapier. This item has a unique passive / active called Butterfinger Smite. What Butterfinger Smite does is you cast it on an opponent and it disarms them. There's only one other existing disarm in the game, which is on Aurelia's ultimate. At least I think that's the only one in the game. And so this item puts it onto a jungle smite. Essentially, think of this a bit like a skirmisher saber, except it doesn't increase your personal damage, isn't so good against abilities and spellcasters, but is much better versus those auto attack style champions. And just for clarification, if you don't know what a disarm is, it means you can't basic attack. To be fair, the 4 seconds on this one is way too long, but I mean, I said in the beginning I don't want this to be a numbers thing, but I think, you know, in theory maybe there is something here. I always like diversity and the ability to have more decisions in the game, so you can choose what you want to match a specific situation. So therefore I quite like the idea of adding more jungle smites. I also think the fact that this one isn't just objectively really strong against all styles of junglers, only against a specific kind, which is those auto attackers, might actually mean that it's kind of realistic. But it would still probably break the game, because it would mean people like Master Yi just completely unviable. And even like AD carries as the game goes on, if you just disarm them in these team fights, that would just be insane. Maybe it should only work against, you know, the jungler that's using the smite, something like that. But outside of that, a unique way to utilize the underutilized disarm mechanic. Moving on here to the Madman's Wand. So this one is really out there, but what I like about it is it's a bit of a double-edged sword. The Madman's Wand polymorphs your target for 2 seconds, but also increases their damage by 50% for 7 seconds. Again, don't worry too much about the numbers, but just the concept here. An item with a hard CC, which is ridiculously bonkers and broken by itself, by the way, but has that double-edged sword component to it, because if you do not utilize that window of that hard CC, that 2 seconds or whatever, where your target is polymorphed, they come out of the polymorph and suddenly they're doing ridiculous damage. If you can polymorph someone and just kill them, then great. Like if you use this item aggressively when there's like no chance of you dying anyway, then this thing is just bonkers. But if somehow, for some reason, that polymorph doesn't do what you want it to do, you're going to have to deal with someone dealing ridiculous damage to you. So as those team fights come through, you better be darn sure you can kill someone else. Hey, whew, that's going to be scary for you and your team. So I think this is a cool concept. I think this is a cool item, but honestly, just the thought of having hard CC on an item is something. It is something. So we'll leave the madman behind and we'll step into a slightly quieter place with the librarian's will. This one quite simply silences your target. Not quite the hard CC like you saw with the madman's wand, but also another kind of double-edged sword, because it doesn't just silence them, it also silences you. Even though I haven't stuck any stats on this item, I would really like to see it as an AP item, a mage item, because mages are the style of champion who will be using their abilities the most, and therefore who a silence would be most deadly against. So with that in mind, you're essentially guaranteeing that the self-silence is most likely going to be pretty detrimental to you, which really ups the ante of this item and makes it so that you have to really think about when you're going to silence your target. Maybe something like you do your spell rotation and then you chuck your silence while your cooldowns are coming up. Maybe you just save it as like an interrupt for the opponent's like channeled ability or something like that. But yeah, like I mentioned before with the previous item, I quite like this concept of having things that are double-edged sword, because then you really do have to think about how you're using it, which means it will reward the players who use their brain a bit more, which I probably shouldn't be advocating considering I'm not one of those players. Either way, to me this item feels more like a realistic choice to be put into the game. I don't think it will be, obviously, but I don't think this one is like ridiculously far-fetched, really far out there or anything like that. Riot's general design philosophy doesn't seem to have too many double-edged sword elements, so I don't think this item has a place in League. But either way, I think it would be cool to see something like it, potentially. Anyway, let's just move on to the next one. The next item's all about adaptation. It molds itself to the needs of the buyer. As such, I have lovingly dubbed this item the stretchy trouser holders. I feel like this name really does justice to the adaptive nature of the item, because of course, as you can see, this is essentially a death cap that also turns into an AD death cap, depending on whether you're an AD champion or not. This item would for sure break the game, because, I mean, if death cap exists as it is, which just gives you a butt ton of AP and then even more AP on top of that, but an AD version does not exist, there's probably a good reason for that, which means that this item would do some very bad things if it was put into the game. But I like to just entertain the thought, entertain the idea of what if these AP items were given AD stats? What about if you had a Zhonya's that could give you AD? What if the Banshee's Veil gave you AD instead of AP? Now, these things are realistic to an extent, right? Because the concepts of these items already exist in game. But if you could have them as adaptive items instead, it would be cool, but I really think it would just completely break everything that you know and love in League of Legends. To that extent, I don't think I'll spend a lot of time on the stretchy trouser holders. So how about we get to the last item I want to show you guys. And this one is one of my favorites. Here it is, Death's Gambit. I was going through some ideas for this video with my brother Fire, and when we thought about this one, just thinking about it, we were like, man, this would be so cool if this was put into the game. This item is really simple at its core. You stick a mark on someone. If you deal a certain amount of damage to them, you will kill them, and if you fail to do a certain amount of damage to them, you will die. I guess I've just got a bit of a hard on for these kind of double-edged sword mechanics, sticking them on items. Can you imagine having this item in the game and the pressure it would put on you? Like if you mark someone thinking you've got the jump on them and they see you and start running away from you and you're chasing after them, come back here you dickhead. And likewise, what if someone sticks it on you and you just have to turn tail and run and pray that they're not going to catch up to you? What might be cool as well is upping the ante of the iron price that you pay if you fail. Maybe if you die to this item, it doubles your respawn timer. Just really emphasizing the risk of this item. Maybe you can add even more to it and say if you kill someone with it, you get double gold, but if you die to it, you give them 1,000 gold. I don't know, just really go crazy with this one. I would imagine it would be some kind of like Z item or a talent item, you know, some kind of AD assassin item. But you know, like I mentioned before, I didn't put a huge amount of thoughts into what kind of item it would be. Just the concept for me, this would be pretty cool. Now, I have to admit something to you guys. I sort of lied to you. I said this was the last item, but it actually isn't. I have one more for you guys. When I say for you guys, that's also a bit of a lie. It's mostly just for me. And this last item is called Cup of Tea. When you use this item, quite simply, it will pause the game for 5 minutes and allow all the players to boil the kettle and grab themselves a cup of tea. In my opinion, this is one of the things that League of Legends is lacking the most, the ability to just chill out and just be like, you know what lads, let's just cease fire here and let's go make a hot one. A bit like that story of when the soldiers came over the trenches on Christmas Day and played football with each other. A little bit like that, maybe not quite on such a scale. That one's probably a little bit of a more impressive story than this one. But you get what I'm trying to say. I think League of Legends would benefit heavily by having this into the game. Having said that, if we're going to keep to the theme of the video, this would absolutely break the game, because games would just come down to who has the most British players on them. Because if you implement this item, I swear down, they're going to start unlocking some kind of superpowers when they're playing. Anyway, that is, and I promise, the last item for this video and the last thing that I have for you for this video. So I'm gonna piss off out of here, and I actually do fancy a cup of tea now, so I think I'm gonna make myself one of those. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give me that cheeky thumbs up, subscribe to me if you want to see more, and don't forget to flick my bell to get those notifications of when I'm uploading. This was a different kind of video for me, but I had fun making it, so let me know if you had fun watching it, and maybe we can do some more in the future. Most importantly, boys and girls, thank you so much for watching. Have a fantastic day, and I will see you in my next